Good evening, friends. Thank you for joining us for another fun episode of Let's Talk Travel. We are going to be sharing a lot of information this evening and also many incredible images of this amazing destination, New Zealand. Uh, we have a great prize drawing at the end, so be sure to stay tuned for that. And that's, of course, exclusive for our live listeners, so you don't want to miss that. We have a very familiar guest to most of you who are regulars here. Terry Odell is joining us this evening. And I know if you're a regular on here, you see Terry has been featured, two or three times previously on Let's Talk Travel. She's the mother of our own Jason Odell, travel advisor extraordinaire, and she hails from Colorado Springs area. Terry, I am so glad to welcome you to another episode of Let's Talk Travel, and I can't wait to hear about this latest New Zealand adventure you're going to share.
I'm delighted to be here. It's fun. It was a great trip. We covered a lot of territory, and I don't think we can do it all in one episode.
That is true. We are going to, in fact, split this. Excuse me. We're going to split this in two episodes because so much. New Zealand, you had, I think, 18 days.
18 on the tour and 3 on our own.
So that's a lot to cover in a 30-minute window. We're going to, sorry, folks. Kathy, could you bring me a drink? Sorry, folks, but anyway, Terry, we always like to start by just letting our viewers get acquainted with you a little bit. Could you just share a little bit about where you are and what you do and let people get to know you a little bit before we dive in?
Sure. I live in Colorado. I'm about an hour away from Colorado Springs up the mountain. So I live in the Rockies at 9,100 feet in a rural area. I used to teach. I retired before we moved here, and now I write. I like to travel, and I like to take pictures.
As people will see, she does a great job with those pictures as well. Now, Terry, as we've hinted at here, you have had a very extensive exploration of New Zealand, and that's truly, folks, that is one of the planet's most amazing destinations. So you did a deep dive on this one. We're going to do half of this. We're going to do the North Island this time around, and we're going to come back in a couple of weeks and finish up and do the other episode with the South Island. So we'll take 2 bites of the apple on this one. So why don't you just start by kind of walking us through your itinerary on this trip so people can just get an idea about what you did.
All right. Well, to maintain marital harmony, we opted for a tour. And because of the way travel is these days, we opted to arrive in Auckland 3 days before the tour started, which was a good thing because we got there 2 days before the tour started, and that's a story for another time. So we had some time to bum around Auckland. The hotel we stayed at was the one that the tour group was using. So we were in downtown. We were right in view of their iconic radio television tower. And I think there's a picture of that coming up. Yep. We were right there. We went to museums because both my husband and I are interested in natural history. One of the best takeaways from this trip was the educational experience it provided. This is a Maori meeting home mock-up in a museum, in the Auckland Museum that we went to. The Kiwis are famous. So here's a shot. which is about the only way you can get a picture of the kiwis because they're nocturnal, and any place that displays them in the dark, and you can't take pictures. So this is the best I can do on a kiwi picture.
I have heard that people who are natives in New Zealand have only seen kiwis in the wild maybe 1 or 2 times in their entire lives.
Yeah, they're not just running around like magpies are up here. They're elusive. They're endangered. They're trying to breed them. The New Zealanders are actually referred to as kiwis. That's their, I don't know what you call it.
That
The
is,
term
and there's a
for them.
certain
Yeah.
fruit that I love that we
Yes,
call the
yes.
kiwi
And the
also.
question, the kiwi fruit was probably named after the bird because it's fuzzy.
Yes,
And
probably. And I wanted to just show this
sure.
overview here of kind of give people an idea. You've got the North Island up there and the South Island. So that picture, that image encompasses 2 separate islands that make up New Zealand.
Yes. And I learned a little bit about geography. It's not my forte. Anyway, we met with our tour group, and this was a railroad-based company. So there were train rides, but we also spent a lot of time on one of the big coaches, big bus. And we stopped a lot. The guides were fantastic. The drivers were the ones who were natives. They knew every nook and cranny, all the history, and they knew where to stop to get good pictures. So we went up to the north to a place called, and forgive my pronunciation on this because, this is for me as bad as the Norwegian was, Paihia, to the Bay of Islands, which is on the water. And we took a cruise. That is called Hole in the Rock. And if you're very lucky on the day you're on the water, you actually sail through that. And we did. So we had a very good day. The scenery is just gorgeous out there. The terminology is if there's vegetation growing on it, it's an island. If there's no vegetation, it's a rock. So we had a lot of rocks and islands. The weather started out just totally fogged. We couldn't see anything. And then that sun came out and lit everything up, and we had a gorgeous day. We went to the glowworm caves, and these are things that I think are native to New Zealand or whatever. They're larval stages of bugs.
Very famous. Everybody wants to go see those.
And that's another one that because they're in the dark, no pictures allowed. So I don't have any pictures of the glowworms. But it was amazing. You're in this dark cave, and all of us, we carried little lanterns, and then she would say, everybody turn them off, and you turn them off, and you'd look at the ceiling, and it was like looking at the Milky Way. It was just, blue, green, white. They are different colors at different stages in their lives. We went to the Waitangi Treaty House, which I don't have pictures of here. That's something else. We'll get to that in a bit. Their treaty between the Maori and the English, I believe it was, and I'm not good at history, was explained, and we had great Maori guides at these places giving us explanations and how they're trying to maintain the culture and what they do. So we saw carvings, and we went into old houses, and I'm not getting political here, but the takeaway universally is that an indigenous culture, when a more technologically advanced culture shows up, they take over and they try to do it. The Maori are working very hard now to maintain the old traditions. We have a little bit about that coming up too. We went to Rotorua, and that was on the way. There's this town called Kawakawa, and there's I guess you'd call him a sculptor. His name was Hundertwasser, and he was famous for designing things with absolutely no straight lines, lots of tiles, no square corners. So this actually is the inside of the ladies' room. And it's one of the most famous toilets in the world. I mean, they have more people visiting it to see it than to use it. Bus loads of people come up, and I think I've got some more of his type of architecture. If you look at the stuff at the bottom there, you can see those bricks aren't laid out in straight lines. The corners are crazy. This is in the memorial park to him where we had lunch. There is probably a couple more, or at least one more. I gave you with the columns there. That's
okay.
That
is very, very intriguing. Those beautiful.
Yeah, colors. I mean, to photograph, you could be here. Jason would have had a field day here, just taking all the pictures of all of this. But this just went on. We walked around. It was amazing. So where do we want to go next? We went to this Te Pui. This is a school, actually, that was built to continue the education, to maintain the heritage of the carvings, the weavings, and the art of the Maori. And it's exclusive. People apply to get in there to learn, to keep their culture. According to my biologist husband, our guide who brought us into their kiwi raising, I don't know what you'd call it, where they're breeding them, where they're trying
to kiwi farm.
Well, it's not like that, but he gave the best explanation of the biology of a kiwi that my husband had ever heard, or that any of the other ones did. So they have kiwi there.
And kind of a refuge for
yes, that's the word I was doing, or a rehab center type thing where they're raising them and to release them into the wild. And so we have that, and then you see the artwork, and they take you through the grounds where they have geysers. And
the geysers, yes.
Yeah, we got that.
I want to do, Terry, I'm just going to throw in here, you gave us a little video here of one.
Great hiding spot too. I had a son once upon a time got himself into a little bit of.
Now it looked to me like there were some people swimming in that pool to the
next to it. Yes, it's naturally heated, and they find the area where they can tolerate that temperature the best. They also have big mud pools that burble up and everything else. There's a fern picture.
Oh, yes.
So this is very typical of the North Island's landscape. Ferns, and more ferns. But if you look in the middle, you can see that geyser, and they're all in there. This is all Maori territory. It belongs to them. But this is what New Zealand North Island looks like. It is green. And
so lush. It's very.
It's amazing. And they were just getting out of summer and into fall because they're flip-flopped from the northern hemisphere.
Right. When we're having summer, they're in their winter season.
Right. So we're in spring now, they're in fall. And you see more of that when we do the South Island. After we had our tour of the grounds, we had an amazing buffet. And Pat, I am so sorry, but there were so many people at this. This is their way they raise money, is you pay to go into this, and you pay for this amazing buffet. And they even have a few dishes that are cooked in the Maori tradition. They did lamb.
Is this kind of?
No, that's that's hotel food, Pat.
That's hotel food. Okay, well,
I don't have pictures because it was impossible to take a picture of the food because there were hands reaching, and it was a humongous buffet. But after that, they did more education about the Maori, and they chose one person from the tour groups from the audience to be a chieftain, who then was going to approach another Maori chief, and they demonstrated what these encounters were like. A lot of posturing, a lot of intimidation, and I did get a video of that.
So, okay, I think I have that one.
Yeah,
Hang on a second here. So politics haven't changed. Still a lot of posturing and
yeah. So they're maintaining the traditions. They're keeping this, when people meet on the street, they don't do this anymore.
thankfully.
But if one tribe was approaching another tribe, they would have to go through this to see how it worked. And I mean, that was just amazing. And again, it makes me feel good to know that they are trying to maintain that experience and the culture and bring it back. After that, we took a train from Hamilton. We took a bus to Hamilton first, and we rode on a train
Great
down.
images you sent of Hamilton here.
Yeah. We went to the Botanic Gardens. The Hamilton Gardens are amazing. There are countless areas of this. So this would be a Japanese section, and then they had a kitchen garden section, and they had a historical thing, and more gardens than you could possibly imagine. And it was somebody's idea to do this, and it's growing. And I think this is the last year that they aren't charging admission for that.
So there wasn't even an admission charge to see these.
No, and they ask for donations, and I'm sure when you pay for the food and everything else, it goes in. Did I send you a picture of the top? We went up a cable car that morning.
No, I don't think
I had an over. Yeah, there it is.
Okay.
So that is from the top of the cable car. So that is Wellington from above. It's not as high as where I live, but it's still higher than that. So we were there. Basically, Wellington is at the bottom of the North Island, and our next day would be a ferry to the South Island. I get these confused because the South Island is colder than the North Island, which is warmer. And we're on the train, and believe me, you're going to see sheep in New Zealand.
It's a big staple in the diet, I am sure.
And it is, and they cook it very well. I love lamb, so I had a good time with that. So
very good. Now you had a video here, Terry, of a vintage train. Would this be a good time to play that?
Sure, we can do that. That was a train-based group, and this is a train in Glen something. Yeah,
I mean, that really dates back to the old steam engine days.
That was a fun day. Our tour had that whole train. I think 2 cars is all they pull, but that's all run by volunteers. They fundraise. They're all dressed in vintage costumes. They bring you a typical simple tea service as you're riding, and they let you go back. They take you or up, depending which way you are, into the engine, and you can watch them as they're shoveling coal. It's the real deal. But again, that's something that was done because our tour was organized by a rail vacation company.
Yeah. Now, Terry, I mean, obviously this was quite an adventure, and I mean, you really did take the time. 18 days gives you the time to do that in-depth exploration. Not everybody, of course, is going to have that kind of time to devote to a trip. If you had to narrow the itinerary down for people Would you say North Island, South Island? Which?
Oh, I couldn't. I would say you'd need 2 trips.
Okay, just need
If
two
you're
trips.
if you're going that far, I would say at least a week on each, and you're going to have to narrow down based on your life. Do you like big cities? Do you like museums? Do you want to go hiking? Do you want to go boating? What you like to do. For me, that Maori experience was a must see. You get such a taste of the culture and such a taste of the island itself, and the food was great.
And that's what people are wanting these days in vacations. People are wanting that authentic connection to culture and to be able to experience some of that. And that sounds like that's what you did, and that spoke to your soul when you were just plugged into that culture there.
It was excellent. It really was. And I knew very little about that, more about Australia, and even that I didn't know much about.
And were there any other couple of points of interest on this North Island itinerary that you would tell people, just don't miss this one?
The Bay of Islands, if you like the water, and that tour, you go over in a ferry, and there's a little town called Russell that you have time to wander around in shops and things like that. I mean, eventually I will have a gallery of pictures of the whole trip, and not trying to cull it down to just a few high points to share here. I would say that. And if you're going to fly into Auckland, so take a couple of days there and look at Auckland stuff. And, there's guidebooks and information. Your hotel concierge will probably give you all kinds of things. Ubers are great.
All right. Uber is good there.
If you're in Auckland, I don't think we waited more than 2 minutes for an Uber. And the exchange rate's really good too. So what looks like $20 comes out to, 14, 13. So
okay,
things end up cheaper when you get your credit card statement.
For once, we're on the good side of that exchange. Doesn't always happen. What level of fitness would you say people should have to engage in a good tour of New Zealand?
Okay, we were, for the most part, on buses from place to place. We would get off. We had one person who I'd say was maybe 40. Everybody else was retired, older. I'm 77. I had no trouble. The hardest part was getting on and off the bus.
Well, that makes it pretty manageable for most of that.
We actually hiked one day when we went out in the Bay of Islands. You have a stop at one of the islands that's developed a little bit, and we opted to walk up to the top of a hill, and that was a climb. The path was steep. It wasn't rock climbing, but it was a steep incline. Other than that, city walking, streets, anybody could do it.
Are they like in Europe, cobblestones
No.
Good.
Most of it's sidewalks.
Wonderful. That makes it very manageable for pretty much anyone then.
Yeah.
What about the weather? What did you experience as about climate while you were there?
Okay, we had in Auckland, the one day of not good weather was the day we had scheduled a whale watch cruise, and the winds were too high, so we didn't do that. I think we had 2 days of rain the entire 18 days. The New Zealand forecasters seem to be about as good as the ones in the States, because it would be the night before our tour manager would say, well, looks like the weather's going to be bad tomorrow. We may miss this or we may do that. Bright, sunshiny day, wonderful. So it's warmer in the north, cooler in the south, but I needed
because you're headed down toward the South Pole when you're headed south. There's counterintuitive where we're used to getting warmer as we head south.
Right. Yeah.
Everything is just backwards to our normal expectations there. What about the culture of the country? Where did you find the native peoples to be approachable and friendly and welcoming?
For what we saw, yes. You have to put it in the context of when you get off, you would have a guide if you were doing a tour of anything, and they obviously are very eager to share their culture with you. You deal with shopkeepers if you're buying something; they're also very friendly because they want
Sure.
to tell you something. But all the people, service help, restaurants, anybody, everybody was super friendly, and they
Excellent.
spoke sort of English.
Sort of English. That always helps if you just, you may not completely understand everything, but you kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
sort of can connect.
yeah,
That's great.
yes.
Now, Terry, you know me. I'm gonna have to ask about the food. I just can't help it. I just gotta know. Do
Mhm.
you have any chances to eat local fare and sample any local delicacies?
Um, we were at hotels big enough to handle tour groups. And these are international tour groups. So breakfast is always included. And if you've ever gone to a European or any kind of hotel outside of America, there is everything. And you can go. I tried kanji once, which is Japanese, I believe, for breakfast. Uh, they they have almost everything. Lunches and dinners, for the most part, on this tour were not included. This was breakfast at one of the hotels. The British eat the beans. I don't know who eats spaghetti for breakfast, but
I was like breakfast, and I'm sure that's spaghetti. Am I seeing that?
yeah,
Okay. Why
I,
not?
I took a picture of that one just because I go, who eats spaghetti for breakfast? But obviously people do because a good number of the hotels had it, not always with red sauce, and then they have fried rice and all. Lunches and dinners were on our own. So we just did what we wanted. Now, fish and chips, okay? You're there, they serve fish and chips. The seafood in New Zealand, if you look at the picture, it's surrounded by ocean. So there's going to be a lot of seafood. My husband fell in love with pickled mussels, which we had as an appetizer at the bar in one hotel, to the point where we went into a supermarket at one stop and he saw, because they had told him, oh, you can just buy these in the market. They're not prepared the same way. We had a couple of Maori dishes. This is a risotto, butternut. You could get anything. I mean, they had vegan, gluten-free, whatever, and you could choose your restaurant because you were on your own. You weren't stuck with a limited menu that you would be. I don't know that I would say delicacies. I like lamb, and they cook a lot of lamb, and I had lamb a lot of ways. Uh, you get, they're down there. I did not. I have tried marmite and Vegemite in my life, and that was it.
Dinner.
Apricots are big there. Yeah, apricots are big too. So we had apricots and raspberry jams and stuff like that. We stopped at a produce stand. This is like one little itty bitty bitty piece of it. They had all kinds of stuff. I could have shown 12 pictures of that, but the produce is really good.
I
And
love this, and this is. I see this sign down here, the gold kiwis. I love
right,
those. Uh, some of my friends have not heard of the gold kiwis, but I find they're sweeter.
yeah, they're very good. We had to have a picture of a kiwi, and I think they were sort of out of season, so we didn't see them as often at the breakfast offerings. But when they did, we grabbed them.
Very good. Now, always a question. Just if you had to rate New Zealand travel on 1 to 5, what would
Yeah,
you give it?
at least a 6.
Okay.
I mean, this is someplace I'm really glad I got to. I'm glad I saw a little bit of everything because it is a long haul. It's really hard, and it can cost bucks if you want to then say, okay, I'm going to go down this year for a week in the North Island, and then you're already there. Why not see if you can get a 2-week vacation?
I always think when you have to travel that far, you need to just take the time and make the most of it. I wanted to ask you, Terry, about
Sure.
you have done all kinds of travel, and including you've done some big ships, some small ships, and you've done land and rail and all kinds. What would you say about how would you contrast the experience on this escorted tour as compared to a cruise experience?
Okay, well, an escorted tour is great. As I started at the beginning, the 3 days we had, or 2 days we ended up having in Auckland, it took 20 or 30 minutes to decide what we were going to do that day. So if we had 18 days on our own to come up with an itinerary, we probably would have tried to do it before we left. It wouldn't have happened. I mean, we wouldn't be married. It's like, I want to do this, you want to do that, or what do you think? So having an itinerary we chose based on what we saw on the website. So that was good. We could get to more places than you could on a cruise because we could go spend all day traveling inland and everything else. I, for one, do not like being surrounded by people. So the thought of 2,000 people and up on a cruise ship doesn't work for me. Being with 30 people on a bus was much better. You'd ride, made friends, and 23 of them were from Britain.
Oh,
And
really?
there were only 7 Americans because 2 tour companies teamed up. We didn't know that was going to happen. So we had a lot of cultural exchanges and a lot of fun. And it was nice because it wasn't the Americans did this and the Brits did that and the Scots did that. I like that better than cruising. We got to see a lot, but you've got the cons. Is you're going to be sitting on a coach. You consider that an at-sea day, but you don't have the places to go to fill in the time if you're at sea. Our guides were great. They stopped for photo ops. They were happy to go off script, off piste. I'm not a skier, but I learned that. To do other things. We have time. The weather's good. There's not much traffic. Do you want to go to this venue? So we did a lot of stuff that wasn't included. So I think you need to look at what you want. You do have to pack. I will say packing cubes for the win because you're in different hotels. One night, a lot, 2, several, and only one time 3. But I had everything organized in my cubes. If we were going to be ready to leave the next morning, when you got there, I could open the suitcase, toss all the cubes onto the bed, grab what I needed, throw the cubes back in. I mean, I could be packed and unpacked in 3 minutes.
Excellent. Outstanding. Now, folks, if you are considering at any time that you would like to do a New Zealand tour anywhere, in fact, we do pretty much every destination on the planet. We're not currently booking much of the Middle East or Russia and Ukraine. Aside from that, whether you're looking for cruises, for all-inclusives, for escorted tour, or independent travel, Dancing Moon Travel, we have agents located throughout the USA. Chances are we have someone in your general area, including Jason up there in Colorado Springs. So just visit our website. Or call our 800 number. We will help you plan an amazing trip. Terry, thank you so much for joining us. We always appreciate it. We'll get back in a couple of weeks and finish up New Zealand.
Right. I've got more pictures to go through.
All right. Yeah, I know you're just back and I'm just back from Europe. So we kind of scrambled to put this together. Finally, all of our regulars know we always have a giveaway item, and tonight is no exception. We have tonight this great Attic City luggage tag. Guys, you don't want to be that person at the when you get up to the airline counter to check your luggage and you're having to take stuff out and start wearing layers or shift things from one bag to another to avoid being over the weight limit. This will come in so handy. If you travel at all, you need one of these. So right now, if you're live only, enter New Zealand in the comments box, and someone of our live viewers is going to win this luggage scale. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you again, Terry. And folks, stay tuned. In a couple of weeks, we'll be back to finish the story, the rest of the story. Thanks, everybody. Bye
Thank
now.
you.